thought-provoking session. I, Dr. SIHS Mehta, student of MBA, Hospital and Healthcare Management, will be continuing here on. Now moving on to the game changers in diagnostics. And to deliberate upon the insights on diagnostics, we have amongst us Dr. Om P. Manchanda from Dr. Lal PathLabs. Sir has been Chief Executive Officer of Dr. Lal PathLabs Private Limited since May 2008, prior to which he has been Chief Operating Officer of the same. Sir is an MBA from Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad. While at Ranbaxy, Sir led the International Innovation Group of the Consumer Healthcare Division. He was part of senior management team responsible for launching Ranbaxy's foray into consumer healthcare. Prior to Ranbaxy, Sir worked at Monsanto as head of sales and marketing. Sir served at Hindustan Unilever for about 10 years, where as a senior brand manager of innovation, he led the designing and launching of a tea-based beverage, which won Unilever's Global Innovation Award. Now may I request Dr. Om P. Manchanda to kindly share with us his practical experiences. Welcome, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone, and I'm really honored to be with you all, and I would like to thank Symbiosis for inviting me. And I know Dr. Lal was supposed to be here, though he's traveling to the US, and I'm making up partly for him. But I guess it's more exciting for me to be here because it takes me back to my college days, and I was thinking this afternoon as to what must be going in most people's mind and what went into my mind 25 years back when I started my career. So I actually have decided to slightly change my presentation, keeping in mind probably what your needs would be. So if I may ask a question before I start, as to how many of you are really students just entering or about to enter into your next phase of life, which is your working career. So if you can raise your hand so I get an idea. Oh, not too many. Okay. How many of you would be actually expecting some sort of advice from me on career building, even if you are somewhere in the middle of your career? Okay, most of you. Great. So what I'll do is that I think I have half an hour, right? I'll try and finish my presentation which I have so that I do justice to hard work which I have put in. Then I'll quickly move to the second part, and I would encourage a little bit of a Q&A on that. And I know Sir mentioned that we will have one Q&A after this, but you're most welcome to ask. A bit about consumer behavior, which Sir has already covered in his presentation, but I'll also briefly talk about that. And then third thing, I'll quickly go back to Dr. Lal PathLabs experience. And I think that's where I'll try and link up as to how management can play a role in building a large organization. Okay, this chart, I don't know, you may be seeing in many presentations from earlier speakers, and you will continue to see it tomorrow as well. Healthcare is supposed to be the largest industry worldwide. In fact, more people are employed in healthcare worldwide than any other industry, if you want to call it. So it's a big employment generator everywhere. And in India, it's believed that this is about $100 billion size by next year. Give and take plus minus 5 or 10 billion, but it's a very large number by any standards. So that's where what I have on this chart. And the growth rate is roughly about 15% every year. And not many industries are growing at that rate, say probably IT per se, but otherwise 15% is a very healthy growth rate in this industry. Now, next deep dive into this number is to where this number is coming from. And I think very large part of this number comes from medical services, which is about 44 billion. This breakup I have, which is not on 100 billion, but it is much lower, about 65 billion, I think. But numbers are immaterial, but you must see from where the contribution is coming from. Most of it is coming from medical services, which is about 44 billion. And out of this, you will see diagnostics is very small, which is just about 3 billion. And other part, which is large part, is the delivery side, which is about 41 billion. Now, both these blocks, if you look at our country, this part is highly fragmented. You have very small hospitals, very small nursing homes. You will see very, very small labs. By one estimate, there are close to 100,000 labs in the country. So it's highly fragmented, highly unorganized. The opportunity for all of you sitting here, people who want to pursue management, is really to organize this space. I think the real need today from the management perspective is it's a very highly inefficient way of delivering service. And there are many chains which are emerging in India today. Before this session, Mr. Daljit Singh was there for Fortis, and I don't know whether you have someone from Apollo. There are a lot of these chains which are coming up trying to organize the space. So the one task which all of us have to perform to make the delivery efficient to the patient and to our community is to really organize it. It is not really for profiteering as much as making it efficient and making it affordable. And affordability will lead to accessibility as well. So I think that's one task which everyone has, including me, people sitting in the room who really are going to pursue career in healthcare, is that to organize this space. The second area is pharma, which is close to about $14 billion. Pharma is much more organized than the service side, delivery side. You know many companies, Lupin, which is next to your campus, whether it's Ranbaxy, whether it's Sun Pharma, whether it's Reddy's Lab, many of these companies actually have come up not only for India market, but they have also explored international markets by launching generic versions in Western world. So this pharma space got much organized well before, but even there also you look at, the companies won't be sitting on very high market share like 30 or 40%. Most of these companies, big names in India, they will have market share in the range of about 10 to 12%. So that is also fragmented by any standards, the kind of industries where I have worked like consumer products. The other portion is medical devices, which is about 4 billion. And I know there was a session from Dr. Velu this morning, who I'm sure would have covered about medical devices per se. This is another very exciting space to be in. Regulations are not very clear, but I think in times to come, medical devices will play a very, very important role in healthcare space. So if some of you are really interested and have engineering background plus wanting to work in this medical devices, is a great area to be in. Now I'll come to that part which is very small portion of the overall healthcare, which is just 3.4 billion. And that's a small little subsection I belong to, which is diagnostic market. And diagnostic is split in two parts. That one is pathology labs, and other is a radiology component. And this breakup is lab business is about 2 billion, which is about 56% of the market, and radiology is about 44. And we belong to this pathology. Even within that, which is very small, and further smaller component is pathology. Dr. Lal PathLab is sitting in this small niche segment, addressing pathology. Now, the key drivers for this growth, I think everybody knows that 70% of medical decisions are based on diagnostics. So we believe that as the role of evidence medicine goes up, so is the role of diagnostics. And it will keep growing. And very interesting component of diagnostic is not only related to only people who are unwell or who want to diagnose a disease, even people who are healthy, they actually go for preventive health checkups. And a lot of testing is happening. So the base is becoming larger and larger for this diagnostic business to address. As it's clearly written here, focus on wellness and preventive medicine. And future trends are going to be a lot of genetic-based testing is going to come. If some of you are interested in molecular diagnostics, that's a really happening field in the area of pathology. So that's growing very rapidly. Now I'll cover, this was broadly about market size, market growth. Let me just sum up in one or two bullet points that it's a very large industry, $100 billion, growing at 15%. There are three broad segments: pharma, healthcare, delivery. Delivery has further two components within the hospitals, which are basically all primary, secondary, tertiary. I'm not going into detail there. And the second area is a diagnostic, and third is devices. but all the sectors of healthcare are growing very rapidly. Now let me come back quickly to consumer and patient. It's one chart which, since I have a consumer background, I have a little bit of marketing knowledge of how consumers believe. And this chart is a very interesting chart. You will see on the left side of this chart are basically goods, which is like clothing, jewelry, furniture, houses. And then slowly it moves to the right with services. Now on the extreme right, you will find medical diagnostics sitting there. Now, it also starts with, as you go towards restaurant, vacation, child care, TV repair. So all this, as you move into services area, these are two spectrum of goods and services we are all interacting on day-to-day basis. The first part, which is the goods parts, they are high in search quality. That I want to buy a car, which is a product, goods. So I actually go and ask people as to which car is good. I go and ask my friend, I do a test drive, I touch and feel the whole thing. I look at everything and then decide to buy that product. Then I go to experience quality services where I actually want to go to a restaurant. If I like one experience, if it's good, fine. If it's not good, I drop it and go next time to some other place. So there is a way to evaluate that service as well. But as you move towards other services and more on medical and healthcare, they are very high on credence qualities, where it's very, very difficult to evaluate these products. It's purely on trust and it's purely on relationship. And I was very fascinated and inspired by some pictures which I saw in the earlier presentation. It's all about that emotional bonds you create, trust you create, and then it's all on credence quality. You will never ever know that actually did you get the service which you paid for. And that is what a medical service is all about. And what are the implications of all these three blocks which I have tried to show here? That the first block, which is goods block, buyers can actually evaluate even before buying. It's a very well-informed decision. The second area is buyer can evaluate after purchase. I go and watch a movie, I go and have a restaurant meal, I know whether I'm satisfied or not. But as you go towards the last one, where you find very hard even to evaluate after consumption itself. That you go and get a test done, you still don't know whether you got the report. Was it actually done properly? Was it all that is on credence? All that is on trust and belief, and that, okay, this service provider has good quality systems and processes in providing that. And that is where we stand for as a company. And I'm really proud to say that all our labs processes most of them are NABL accredited. We have our internal standards. We have the highest accreditation in the world, which is College of American Pathologists. So we're very, very strict on some of these standards as far as the testing is concerned. This chart again, which is more on the where this healthcare is actually growing. And broadly speaking, if you go back 20 years, 30 years, it was all about infectious disease, all about communicable diseases. Now it is all about non-communicable diseases, all about lifestyle diseases. And this chart, I think everybody will have in their presentation, the contribution of chronic disease is rising with time, and I think this chart is from 1990 to 2010. The 28% which used to be chronic disease, today the contribution has gone up to 60%. So this is one big menace in terms of whether it's a diabetes or cardiovascular or cancer. A lot of these lifestyle diseases have just come into our society and adversely impacting us. And this is another chart which shows that prevalence of population in 2015 close to 5% will have coronary heart disease. Diabetes 3.7%. So they are very large number by any stretch of imagination. And this is another statement which I picked up somewhere. The probability of an Indian getting heart attack is 4 times greater than an American and 6 times greater than a European and 7 times more than Chinese and 20 times higher than Japanese. And I'm sure all of us know that average lifespan of Japanese is the highest, and I saw in the previous chart as well. And you can just imagine the kind of, and some of it is not only related to our public health issues, but it's also related to some of our predisposition in our genetic makeup as well. So we need to be a little more careful in some of these areas. Another interesting thing about Indian healthcare, which is very unique when we tend to compare with outside world, and sometimes we tend to miss out on this aspect, that we don't have any social security structure. 70 or 80% or 70% of payment is out of pocket. As you picked up in the last presentation, that India spends close to 3.5 or 4% of GDP, which is actually declining. And surprising part is only 20% is public, 80% is private, and it's all out of pocket. And that is actually putting a lot of pressure on all of us not to avail healthcare. And you must have read that Indians go into poverty not because of inflation, but they go because of medical expense. And I read a very sad article the other day that in India, entire life saving for many people who actually think that they'll leave behind for their children, they end up spending the last few days of their life on medical expense. And that is the story of many of us, and because it's all out of pocket, we don't have a social security structure which takes care of our medical expense. I hope it changes with time. I hope we do something in this area. Otherwise, some of these chronic diseases will just actually invade our system so much that we'll have bad impact on the entire structure. These are some studies many consultants do, many advisory firms do, that share of wallet, where you must have, some of you are management students, so you would know that this is likely to grow beyond 5% to 7.5% by end of this decade. So these are some of the charts which I think it will remain with you, so you can go into detail later. But the point is, healthcare and education are two very big areas of share of wallet is actually likely to increase in times to come. This is a very interesting chart I have here. There are 4 quadrants to this chart, and if you look at what are the drivers for healthcare business, the easy accessibility, convenience, quick service, and the quality care. And I think that's where the management challenge lies. If you actually look at this, the quality care is a very technical aspect. But if you look at the other 3 aspects, are purely non-technical in nature. So the consumer demands are really growing, and they are of different nature, where there's a bit of a conflict on the provider side and what is consumer expecting. And to my mind, any institution which is trying to really deliver all the 4 will be the one which will be successful in times to come. If you continue to say that I'm a quality care, great guy, best standards, and don't score well on the other 3, you have a problem. In today's era of modern technology, where everything is like, I just want everything at doorstep. Today, any problem you have, the first thing you go onto Google and find out what's the solution to this problem. And you just want the solution right on your handset. And you just want anytime, anywhere. You want provider to come to you rather than you want to go to provider. Those are the changes which are happening. And I think many of you who want to enter into healthcare, keep in mind, and these 3 areas where a lot of scope lies for career building. And which is, for the lack of a better word, whether you call it administration or you call it IT systems or whatever, is just delivering that healthcare in the most convenient and friendly manner to the consumer. You will be surprised that in our business, I have something called home collection service, which never existed before I joined this system. Today is the most demanded service in the system. People just want to book their test online, and they want somebody to come and collect the sample from home, and report also to be delivered home online. All this falls in these 3 areas. So I think some of you sitting here wanting to pursue career in healthcare must do not overlook this area. Now there are a few other shifts which I see are happening in healthcare. In the past, and even today also, I won't say a significant people actually go there, but today I still see a doctor when I see I have a problem. But it's changing. People actually want to see a medical professional to find out whether everything is okay or not. I don't need to see a doctor if I'm unwell. I can see a doctor even if I'm perfectly fine. So the paradigm shifts that those are happening are from prescriptive to preventive. And what's the implication of this? Implication of this is that you're not talking to patients, you're talking to consumers. There's a difference in that. A consumer really do not want to really go to a hospital which gives him a look and feel of an area where all patients are there or sick people are there. So it's completely changing. I'll try and cover later as to some more changes are likely to happen as we go along. So that's the first thing, which means illness to wellness. And you will see a lot of wellness centers already have come up, and you will see chains of such, some chains will emerge in times to come. It is no more opinion-based. Those days are gone when I actually go to my physician and he or she writes a prescription and says you start taking this medicine. Most likely, he or she would want you to go through few tests, be sure what he or she is prescribing, then ask you to take medication. I think I have a feeling that probably in 10 years from now, you may not even go to a doctor without having few test results in your hand. Or your doctor actually may want you to go to test before he or she sees you. So that's another change which is happening. Opinion-based is becoming evidence-based. I need to know what the problem I have before I take the medicine. And this last point I already mentioned, the communicable to non-communicable. So that's broadly about 2 points I covered, size of the market and few paradigm shifts on consumer behavior I see. Now I go on to the Dr. Lal PathLabs. Story of Dr. Lal PathLabs goes something like this. It's a very old pathology lab, started in 1949 by Major Dr. S.K. Lal and his son Dr. Arvind Lal, who is actually currently in the US. I just got a call from him as well. So he's from AFMC Pune. He joined this business in 1977. As any other pathology lab you would see in your own community area over the streets. So just single pathology lab out of central Delhi, a place called Connaught Place. From 1949 till 2001, it was a single lab in Connaught Place in Hanuman Road. Now, it's a different case study. Actually, IIM Ahmedabad is writing a case study on us, so you'll actually get to know a little more about this. So because of time constraint, I can't go deeper into this. I'll be more than happy to come back again and share with you. Today we have 150 labs, 2,000 collection centers, and we service about 10 million patients every year. And as I told you, we have all the accreditation to take care of the quality process. So briefly tell you what really changed for this organization. That change happened in 2005. Though it took place in 2005, but probably the vision of Dr. Lal had started about 6-7 years before itself that he needs to expand. Something is really happening. We got a private equity funding in 2005, and they were looking for a professional CEO, and they found one in me. And I joined this place in 2005. And since then, we have been scaling it up across the country. Though we are very large in northern and eastern part of India, we're still a national brand, but we have a sketchy presence in south and western part. I'll share with you the business model, the way it works. This is our central lab in northern part of, excuse me. This is a central lab where we do all the tests, and this lab is located in northern part of Delhi, which is known as Rohini. This is a very interesting slide, and you may want to actually understand as to how this business works. It's somewhat like a pyramid, where at the top you have, can I use a pointer? So this model actually is fairly common in Western world as well. So you have at the top something called reference lab, where all the tests are done, and that lab picture I showed you. Then we go down to next level of labs, which we call it satellite lab or a regional reference lab. They are in metros. The next stage is mini metros, where we have further scaled down version of this lab. And the last one is where we have collection centers. Now, collection center model provides, it actually gives the ability to this business to scale up. And the beauty of this business is that we don't need patient, we actually need patient sample. So the patient sample can get collected where the patient is, and the sample starts traveling instead of patient traveling, which is little unlike for, let's say, radiology business or, let's say, hospital business, where you need patient, but I'm sure in 5 years from now that also will change after telemedicine comes in. And that actually gives us scalability. Now, if you look at India, close to 5,000 towns, 600,000 villages, 1 billion people, I can actually scale this up by opening a network of collection centers across the country. And the entire cold chain, the sample movement has been perfected where the sample integrity is maintained. And this really has helped us to go up to 10 million patients. And that actually has, I won't go into too much of details here, but net impact of that is that we are growing at about 30-35% compared to market growth rate of 20%. And as you bring these samples into one place, that economies of scale helps you to bring down the cost per test. And since you're all management guys, you would always have a pressure of making the business viable. At any point in time, you're only looking at two numbers, either the revenue or the cost of gaining that revenue. So that net institution is viable. So you always need to look at cost at every point in time. And these are 4 key brand differentiators we have, which is high technology, which is on the quality side. I told you about those 3 quadrants on the consumer. We have high touch, which is sort of that I'm a caring sort of person. High speed, turnaround time is very, very important. Once you give blood sample, you need to have report on time. And then high spread, it's that patient wants to have all tests under one roof. So we don't want to tell any patient that we don't do this test, please go to some other lab. So it's all under one roof. Everything is, that's what I call it high spread. I'll quickly go through, which I mentioned to you, that paradigm shift from predictive to preventive. So we are not only addressing patients, we are also addressing people who are well, people who are normal, people who actually want to find out that they have everything is fine. So we do a lot of these activities in Delhi, marketing activities, whether it is awareness campaign through radio, newspapers. So a lot of such programs which are being launched by this company to promote preventive health. Vitamin D is another success story which you may have heard from people is the fastest growing test today in the country. And I'll come to the last one, which is likely to change